What's happening to some of America's biggest cities? From skyrocketing living costs to rising crime rates, some urban areas are shrinking faster than you might think. Could your city be on the verge of decline? 10 cities are facing dramatic population drops, and it's not just about empty apartments. There are deep issues at play. In this video, we'll explore the fastest dying cities in America and the factors behind their downfall. Could your hometown be next? Let's find out which cities are in serious trouble and what's causing these surprising shifts. Number 10. Jackson, Mississippi. Jackson, Mississippi, the capital city that's been losing people faster than a melting ice cube on a summer day. Over the last few years, Jackson has seen a 1.2% population drop, with more than 2,040 residents packing their bags and leaving. Now, you might wonder, why are people leaving a city that's known for its rich blues music and southern charm? Well, the reasons are plenty, and none of them are great. First off, crime is a massive issue. Jackson consistently ranks among the most dangerous cities in America, with a violent crime rate of 1,050 incidents per 100,000 people, almost triple the national average. This makes daily life unpredictable, and many families just don't feel safe raising kids here. Then there's the water crisis, and this one is serious. In 2022, the city's main water plant completely failed, leaving over 150,000 residents without clean drinking water for weeks. Imagine waking up, turning on the tap, and boom, nothing but brown sludge. That's been Jackson's reality for years, and people are simply fed up. On top of that, the economy isn't doing any favors. The city's unemployment rate sits at 6.5%, which is significantly higher than the national average of 3.8%. Young professionals are fleeing because job opportunities are slim, and businesses are hesitant to invest in a city with struggling infrastructure. The median household income is only $40,000, far below the national average of $74,580, which makes financial stability a challenge for many. If that wasn't enough, education and healthcare are also on the decline. Jackson's public schools are ranked among the lowest in the state, and hospitals have been shutting down due to funding issues. A city that once thrived as a cultural and political powerhouse is now facing a major crisis that's pushing thousands to move elsewhere. But here's the crazy part. Despite all of this, Jackson still has a deep cultural identity, especially in its blues music scene and soul food traditions. If the city can turn things around with serious investments in safety, infrastructure, and job opportunities, maybe, just maybe, it could bounce back. But for now, Jackson is one of the fastest dying cities in America. Number 9. Baltimore, Maryland. Next up is Baltimore, Maryland, aka Charm City. But lately, it's been feeling less like a charming destination and more like a ghost town. Over the past few years, the city has lost about 5,310 residents, marking a 0.9% population decline. So, what's making people pack their bags and leave? First, let's talk about crime, because Baltimore has some serious issues. The violent crime rate is a staggering 1,859 incidents per 100,000 people, which is over 4 times the national average. The city consistently ranks in the top 5 most dangerous places in America, and with over 300 homicides every year. Safety is a huge concern. Families and businesses alike are choosing to leave for quieter, safer suburbs. Then, there's the economic struggle. Once a thriving industrial city, Baltimore has been hit hard by job losses, declining wages, and failing infrastructure. The unemployment rate sits at 5.7%, well above the national average, and nearly 1 in 4 Baltimore residents' lives below the poverty line. The once mighty manufacturing and shipping industries have shrunk, leaving behind abandoned warehouses and struggling communities. Another big issue, education and public services. Baltimore's school system ranks among the worst in the country, with only 12% of students proficient in math and reading. Can you imagine trying to raise kids in a city where the schools are failing that badly? No wonder families are leaving in search of better educational opportunities. But here's the thing. Baltimore is still full of history, culture, and great food. The Inner Harbor, its famous crab cakes, and a passionate sports scene with the Ravens and Orioles keep some people sticking around. The city could make a comeback, but it will take serious investments in safety, education, and job creation. Until then, Baltimore remains one of America's fastest dying cities. Number 8. Anchorage, Alaska. Anchorage, Alaska, where the population is melting faster than a popsicle in July. Over the past few years, 3,020 people have left, marking a 1% population decline. Now, Anchorage isn't your typical American city. It's got breathtaking landscapes, wildlife, and some of the cleanest air in the world. So why are people leaving? First off, the cost of living is through the roof. Despite being a relatively small city, Anchorage is one of the most expensive places to live in the US. Groceries? 30% more expensive than the national average. Gas? Over $4.50 a gallon. And housing? Well, the median home price is around $420,000, which is higher than in many major US cities. Then there's the extreme weather. Let's be real. Most people aren't built for 6 months of darkness, freezing temperatures, and 10-foot snowdrifts. Winter in Anchorage can last from October to April, with temperatures dropping as low as minus 30 degrees Fahrenheit. Seasonal depression is a real thing here, and many people decide they've had enough of the endless cold. Another issue? Job opportunities are drying up. The city heavily relies on oil, fishing, and tourism, but in recent years these industries have faced major slowdowns. With fewer jobs and rising costs, young professionals and families are moving to the lower 48 in search of better opportunities. The unemployment rate in Anchorage stands at 5.2%, which isn't terrible, but when you combine that with the high cost of living, it's easy to see why people are leaving. Despite all this, Anchorage still has a strong sense of community, stunning natural beauty, and a unique way of life. But for many, the high costs and brutal winters are too much to handle, making it one of America's fastest dying cities. Number 7. Portland, Oregon. Now, let's head to the West Coast, where Portland, Oregon, once considered a hipster paradise, is now experiencing a 3% population decline. That's thousands of people leaving one of America's most progressive cities. So, what happened? One word: homelessness. Portland's homeless crisis has reached shocking levels, with an estimated 6,297 people living on the streets in 2023 alone. Public parks and sidewalks are lined with tents, and the city's slow response to the crisis has frustrated both residents and business owners. Many who once loved the city for its laid-back, artsy vibe now say it's unsafe and unlivable. Then there's crime. While Portland was once known for its friendly, quirky culture, it now has one of the highest crime rates on the West Coast. The violent crime rate is 530 incidents per 100,000 people, and property crime is rampant. Cars get broken into daily, and small businesses struggle with constant theft. Portland's economy has also taken a hit. The city became a tech and creative hub, but in recent years many companies have relocated due to high taxes, rising rent, and crime concerns. The result? A struggling job market and a lot of empty storefronts. The unemployment rate is 4.8%, and home prices, once booming, have started to decline, scaring off investors. And let's talk about politics and protests. Portland has been at the center of some of the most intense political protests in the US in recent years, leading to clashes between police, activists, and residents. While the city prides itself on being progressive, the constant unrest has driven many away, with some saying it's just too chaotic to live here anymore. Despite these issues, Portland still has a strong coffee scene, an incredible food culture, and some of the best outdoor activities in the country. But if it wants to stop the exodus, it needs to tackle homelessness, crime, and economic decline fast. Otherwise, Portland might just keep slipping down the list of America's fastest dying cities. Number 6. Chicago, Illinois. Chicago, one of America's most iconic cities, known for deep dish pizza, towering skyscrapers, and die-hard sports fans, is losing people faster than a Cubs bandwagon after a losing season. Since 2020, over 81,000 residents have left, marking a 2% population decline. So, why are people fleeing one of the biggest cities in the US? First, crime. Chicago has long struggled with gun violence and gang activity, and while the media sometimes exaggerates it, the numbers don't lie. In 2023, The city reported over 600 homicides and 2,500 carjackings, one of the highest rates in the country. Even safe neighborhoods are seeing more crime, making many families reconsider their future in the city. Next up, taxes and cost of living. Illinois has one of the highest property tax rates in the US, and Chicago adds its own city tax on top of that. Add in a 10.25% sales tax, one of the highest in America, $6 per gallon gas and skyrocketing rents, and it's no wonder people are looking for cheaper places to live. And let's talk about weather. Chicago's winters are brutal. We're talking minus 20 degrees Fahrenheit wind chills and lake-effect snow that buries your car overnight. The city's nickname, the Windy City, isn't just about politics. It's about bone-chilling gusts that make walking outside a nightmare for half the year. Despite these issues, Chicago still has a lot to offer. It's home to world-class museums, an incredible food scene, and some of the best architecture in the world. But with crime, high taxes, and rough winters pushing people away, the Windy City is definitely shrinking. Number 5. New York, New York. It's hard to imagine New York City, one of the most famous places on Earth, losing people. But believe it or not, since 2020, over 500,000 people have left, making it the fastest declining big city in America. The biggest reason? Insane cost of living. The average rent for a one-bedroom apartment is $4,500 in Manhattan, and even in cheaper boroughs like the Bronx, it's still around $2,200. Add in $8 coffees, $20 cocktails, and a subway system that keeps raising fares, and many New Yorkers are saying, enough is enough. Then there's crime and homelessness. While NYC isn't as dangerous as it was in the 80s, crime has spiked since 2020. The city reported 125,000 major crimes in 2023, and public transportation has seen an increase in thefts, assaults, and subway pushings. Meanwhile, the homeless population has surged to over 100,000 people, with tent encampments popping up all over the city. Taxes? Forget about it. New York has the highest income tax rate in the country. If you make $1 million a year, you're handing over nearly 15% to the state and city combined. Even middle-class workers feel the squeeze, and many are relocating to Florida, Texas, and even Europe for a better quality of life. But let's be real. New York is still New York. It has Broadway, Times Square, Wall Street, Central Park, and some of the best food in the world. If you can afford it, it's still an incredible place to live. But for the average person, New York City is becoming unlivable, and that's why people are leaving in record numbers. Number 4. New Orleans, Louisiana. New Orleans is one of the coolest, most unique cities in America. It has amazing jazz music, Mardi Gras, beignets, and a deep cultural history. But here's the truth. It's dying, and fast. Since 2020, the city has lost over 8,000 residents, marking a 2.5% population decline. The biggest issue? Crime. New Orleans now has the highest murder rate in the US, with 74 homicides per 100,000 people, more than double that of Chicago. Carjackings, armed robberies, and break-ins have made daily life a constant worry, and tourists have even started avoiding certain areas because of safety concerns. Then there's hurricane devastation. New Orleans has always been vulnerable to storms, but after Hurricane Katrina in 2005, the city never fully recovered. More recently, Hurricane Ida in 2021 caused massive power outages, destroyed homes, and left thousands struggling to rebuild. Many residents just decided, why deal with this every year, and left for good. Another big issue? The economy. While tourism is a huge part of the city's identity, it doesn't pay well. The median household income is just $44,000, compared to the national average of $74,580. Jobs in healthcare, education, and tech are limited, making it tough for young professionals to build a stable future here. And let's talk about infrastructure. The roads? A disaster. Public transportation? Terrible. And the flooding? Even a heavy rainstorm can turn the streets into a mini Venice. People are tired of dealing with crumbling infrastructure, and it's one of the biggest reasons they're leaving. That said, New Orleans still has soul. Its music, food, and party culture are unlike anywhere else in America. But for those who aren't looking for a non-stop party, the crime, hurricanes, and lack of jobs are making the Big Easy a lot harder to live in. Number 3. Boston, Massachusetts. Boston, the city of Harvard, Fenway Park, and endless Dunkin' Donuts, is losing residents faster than the Red Sox lose star players. Since 2020, over 50,000 people have left, marking a 2.2% population decline. So, what's driving people away? Insane housing costs. The average price for a home in Boston is a staggering $750,000, and even renting isn't much better. The median rent for a one-bedroom apartment is over $3,200 per month, more expensive than Miami, Denver, or even Chicago. And it's not just housing. Boston's overall cost of living is 50% higher than the national average. Groceries, utilities, gas, it's all sky high. Even a simple night out can cost a fortune. A beer at Fenway Park? $13.50. A lobster roll? $30. A parking ticket? Forget about it. Then there's the traffic and public transport nightmare. Boston has some of the worst congestion in America, with commuters wasting nearly 134 hours a year stuck in traffic. The T, Boston's subway system, is notorious for breakdowns, derailments, and endless delays, making daily commutes an absolute headache. And while Boston is a major hub for tech, biotech, and finance, not everyone benefits. Many locals feel like the city is catering to wealthy professionals while pricing out working-class families and young graduates who can't afford to stay. That said, Boston still has a lot to love: world-class universities, a legendary sports culture, and rich history. But for the average person, the high costs and traffic headaches are forcing thousands to pack their bags for more affordable cities. Number 2. Detroit, Michigan. Detroit was once the backbone of American industry, the home of Ford, GM, and Motown legends. But today, it's a shell of its former self. Since 1950, Detroit has lost over 1.2 million residents, and between 2020 and 2023, another 40,000 people left. Why is Detroit still declining? A weak job market. The auto industry, once the city's lifeline, has downsized dramatically. While there's been some growth in tech and startups, good-paying jobs are still scarce. The median household income in Detroit is just $36,000, half the national average. Then there's crime. Detroit consistently ranks among the most dangerous cities in America, with a violent crime rate of 2,200 per 100,000 residents. That's 4 times the national average. In 2023, there were over 300 homicides, and carjackings have become a daily occurrence. And let's talk about urban decay. Detroit has tens of thousands of abandoned buildings, entire neighborhoods that look like ghost towns, and some of the worst roads in the country. Potholes the size of craters are a common complaint, and public services like trash collection and streetlights often fail due to budget cuts. But here's the thing. Detroit is trying to make a comeback. Dan Gilbert's investments, new restaurants, and a growing arts scene have given some hope. But for most residents, crime, poor job prospects, and decaying infrastructure make it hard to justify staying. Number 1. San Francisco, California. San Francisco, the city of tech billionaires, the Golden Gate Bridge, and stunning bay views, is now the fastest dying city in America. Since 2020, over 70,000 people have left, and downtown San Francisco is practically a ghost town. Why? Cost of living is completely out of control. The median home price? $1.3 million. Average rent for a one-bedroom? $3,700. A simple burrito? $15. Even the wealthy are feeling the squeeze. Middle-class families are practically extinct here. And then there's crime and homelessness. San Francisco's streets are filled with open-air drug markets, tent cities, and a skyrocketing crime rate. The city had over 50,000 car break-ins in 2023, and many stores are closing permanently due to rampant shoplifting. Even Target and Whole Foods had to shut down in some areas. And let's talk about the tech industry collapse. During the pandemic, remote work became the norm, and now thousands of office buildings sit empty. Companies like Twitter, Meta, and Salesforce have downsized their SF offices, leading to a commercial real estate crisis. Without workers commuting downtown, restaurants and shops have no customers, leading to even more closures. Public transportation? A mess. The BART system is running at 40% of pre-pandemic levels, and the city's budget crisis means even fewer services in the future. San Francisco was once a dream city. Now, it's a cautionary tale. Unless something major changes, this once thriving tech hub will continue to shrink.